Hello, hello. We have some voice coils here. And I'm gonna be asking Paula some questions in English. And she probably will not answer them. So, actually, we have here some voice coils from NART Audio. It is a...
I'm sorry.
NART Audio is from Latvia. And he's actually quite of our fan and our friend in here. So, and actually he is now in live. We are now making this video in live, and this will be posted in YouTube. So I have here double 2 ohm voice coils, which will be installed and tested out. And then I have 6 test voice coils here. So we will be talking about a little bit about the aluminium voice coils and round copper voice coils, and I think here some of here was also round copper voice coil. It was the 7 ohms, 7.1 ohm one is the voice coil. And I will be asking some tight questions from Paula, and she is trying to answer them. Are you okay with that?
No.
Okay, let's
ahead.
Continue. So. In here I have these are all 3-inch voice coils, and in here I have a round copper voice coil, which is actually probably better known in small RMS amplifier subwoofers, and these flat aluminium voice coils are more usually used in high-powered subwoofers. But why is that? Why aluminium? What is aluminium vs copper? So I have 2 voice coils here. Test it out how they weight. Which one is heavier?
This one.
The copper one is much heavier. Would you agree?
With tentacles.
The one with tentacles. Yes, and this wasn't even the lightest one. This 42 ohms single voice coil is probably the lightest one in here. So we have very heavy voice coil. What else you can see from these? What's the difference in these?
This part. This is much taller, and this is
smaller. Yes, she's talking about this section here, which is quite small on here and quite high on here. These are made to be installed in a normal subwoofer. These are normal voice coils to be installed in subwoofer, and these are test voice coils. So in here we have this area here where you connect the cone, and this should have a very porous material where the glue goes in and sucks in here. And as this is just a test voice coil, this actually does not have any leads coming out, so we have these plates here on both sides, which is one is positive, one is negative, that we can connect into my test bench. So that's a good thing. What else you can see?
This is much
thicker.
thicker.
Yes, as you can see in here, maybe if I put them like on together, probably you can or cannot see, but this one is much thicker. This is actually, I think this is a 4-layered voice coil. 1, 2, 3, 4-layered voice coil. So this is much thicker than this one. Because if you are using only really small impedance or ohms in your subwoofer, you don't actually, it's quite impossible to have this kind of thick material on your voice coil if you are using a really low impedance, like a single or 0.42 ohms. Or is it so, Artus? Artus is still watching here. Is it possible to have really thin voice coil in thickness and still have a really low or really high the ohms inside here? Because this one, which is actually the flat aluminium one, and this is the copper one, as you can see, the flat aluminium one has much thicker coil here, and actually on the NART Audio webpage, which you must follow. I command you to follow. They are on Facebook, facebook.com, nartaudio.lv. Nice new logo there, and this site had a really nice picture. Actually, these coils are in here. Greetings from to Team Peränurkka from NART Audio. But these he actually cut down. Here's a really good picture of a flat aluminium voice coil, which is probably, it is 4-layered, so it should be like this voice coil in here. So it is 4-layered voice coil. As you can see here, it has they are really tightly held together. With a round copper voice coil, you have a quite similar type of winding there, but in copper, as it is a round copper, it might have some slight holes between them, but the flat aluminium one, they are really nice and thick together. What else I can talk about this? Well, the copper voice coil can hold much more heat. The coppers can handle much more heat, but the heat dissipation of the voice coil is also much slower than the aluminium one. This is aluminium one. So if you are running a voice coils for in summertime when you are playing subwoofer really loud and everything is hot, a aluminium one should coolen up much faster than the copper one, because copper tends to have the heat energy built up inside, and then it just holds it before it dissipates out. Actually, I think Artus sent some. For speakers, I can make voice coils with special dimensions. Yes, Artus has made a really nice set of voice coils in here. Actually, he is capable of doing up to 6-inch voice coils in Latvia, and actually to speakers like really old and rare, like speakers that you don't anymore have any spare parts to install in. He says that I can make aluminium 8-layer coil and it will be thick but with 0.5 ohms. That is actually quite nice. Making a really thick aluminium voice coil with 0.5 ohm resistance. So good things between aluminium or copper. Copper is heavier. Copper holds more heat. Copper handles more heat. Aluminium is lighter. Aluminium cannot stand more heat than copper. Aluminium cools faster. But if you are using aluminium voice coil, you need to have much more weight on your cones and everything, on your moving mass, because the heavier the voice coil is, the lower the subwoofer's frequency is, the resonance frequency is, the better sound quality wise it plays from like from if you have a subwoofer that FS is around 30 Hz, it plays really nicely from 30 Hz up without any audible distortion. But if you have a very lightweight system, the resonant frequency of the subwoofer will be probably higher, because everything is so soft and lightweight. And I think that voice coil should have some kind of weight. It is compromising the facts that should I use a copper or should I use aluminium. The highest SPL speakers usually use aluminium voice coil, because I think it's because of the really small burps and really small, very high temperatures and consistency of the voice coil. But round copper and even actually round aluminium voice coils are still around. And Artu says there that he can also make a GL Audio 3.5 inch voice coils. Now if you have this kind of, he actually made this kind of well, this kind of thing to help the voice coil in when he winds the voice coil. So he can probably make on demand some really freaky forms, yeah, really freaky sized voice coils. Like a Digital Designs uses 3.35 inch voice coils, just to have, if you have the old voice coil and your speaker is somewhat intact, you can actually probably send it to Artus and he can try to make the similar voice coil, and he's really good at these things actually. Something to keep in mind that if you are using actually what I did not say in the Finnish video before I made this video, a voice coil dimension should be around, if you're using an SPL voice coil, it should have really tight tolerances. So the centerpiece of the subwoofer and the top plate, if it's really tight tolerance, like so it is really close to the voice coil. It can only play like one note, but if it has a really wide tolerance here, it allows the voice coil a little bit movement, so it can play various musical sounds and everything. Of course, the spider and the cone will try to make it held really in straightforward, but if in the SPL range, when we are playing only one note, the gap should be as close as possible to get the most efficiency from a subwoofer. Now these 6 coils in here, which actually are 0.42, so it's a 0.5, around 0.5, around 1 ohms, around 4 ohms, around 2.6, around 2 ohms, around, well actually this was the 2 ohm ones, 1.8, 3 ohms, and 8 ohms, 7.1, 8 ohms. These are actually going to be on my test bench, where I submerge these into water and I can put some high quality leads in here. And actually Artus said earlier in this live session we have here that these pads are made so that on the aluminium form on top of it is a isolation layer, and then the porous material here, so he can made these pads here for me to connect my leads, because I don't need this wide range. As Paula mentioned, this has much more wide range here, and your voice coil can actually be like really long. Depends on the what kind of features you want in your subwoofer. It can also have a coil looking like this, so you have actually 2 voice coils. I've seen some of these subwoofers, but the normal subwoofer should only have like this looking normal voice coil. So these will be submerged in water, and I will be testing amplifiers with these, so I can test how much power it comes out from the amplifier in different kind of impedances. I'm saying impedance because I'm using the different kind of frequencies to play with these, and with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 calculations I can calculate all of the power that comes out from the amplifier between these test points. So what about else? Did I forget something? Hopefully not.
The blackness thing.
Oh, the blackness thing, of course. Voice coils have different kind of lac material. Did I mention about the bubble in here? I think not. In Finnish, I think I said it. But the voice coils...
Sure about it.
Okay. The voice coils have different kind of coatings on them. Let me just see if I can get a really nice black one here. So this has some kind of copper shining through, and this is really dark black. It does not mean that the voice coil is burnt. It's just the material in the lac. And the lac that is being used here, this is, I think the black one usually is called around like a high temperature voice coil, usually looks like black one. And actually I think Japanese made Ground Zero Plutonium limited edition voice coil has a Teflon coating or something really nice surface touch there. But the normal voice coils have a clear varnish or lac on top of them, and the high temperatures one has a black coating on them. It's just the color of the thank you, Mr. Koira, for letting me know that. So it does not mean that it's burnt. It's just the color of the lac and the temperature. If the black one usually handles more temperature than the clear varnish one. But the bubble that Mr. Koira said, and I asked about Paula, is that the normal when the voice coil burns down or you break your subwoofer, what happens and why it happens? So the voice coil can actually, the lac or the varnish in here can actually like burn or bubble. So when the high temperature varnish is being boiled in really high temperature, it can actually make a gas bubble underneath here, the former. So the gas bubble builds inside the voice coil and builds a really small bubble underneath here, the former. The thickness of the former and the overall quality of the voice coil will help to prevent the bubble from happening. But I've seen like really high quality voice coils from DD Audio having the same issue. This actually is, I think this is actually really thick and nice aluminum former that Artus is using in here. But when the varnish heats up, it burns and it makes some gases, and the gases cannot escape from the top surface in here, so it will try to burst it somewhere. So usually it builds a little bit bubble underneath here, and then it will hit the center piece of the subwoofer, making noise. And what you can do to prevent this? Well, the voice coils have some kind of RMS or peak power wattage what you can use, and I like to say that it is heat power. It is not amplifier power, it is heat power. So it determines how much heat a voice coil can handle before it breaks down and has some kind of deforming or anything. So playing without distortion, playing with a normal range of the voice coil will help you to prevent this kind of breakage and bursting or bubbles inside. Also, when the voice coil is moving really fast, if the varnish or the lac in here softens up, it can actually cut down the voice coil in two, and it has two separate pieces, like the springs when you were a kid and playing them. It actually can break between here. The voice coil is actually having the same impedance as every Slinky. Yes, thank you, Slinky. It performs and shows from the ohm meter really nicely, but it's actually cut in half in here, and the top bottom hits the back bottom and makes quite of a noise. Or the voice coil just winds up openly because of the softness of the varnish, and it just like goes in gibberish and clogs up the pole piece and there, and it is really nasty thing to happen. Artus says there that some customers want to have light color to see if coil is burned. All my coils are made in one technique. If it is very black, it's coated with thick layer of resin to have it black. Okay, so these have much more thickness of the varnish, of resin. Well, resin is probably the better choice. I'm using lac because in Finland we use lakka, and lac is lac or varnish. But it is really actually a resin to what helps these intact. Sorry about misleading somewhat or there, because I'm just trying to translate this from Finnish into English for you guys. But anyhow, the breakage of the voice coil is usually because of the DC that comes out on distorted amplifier. Without distortion, it's actually without distortion, you can like really, it's really hard to break a voice coil. Heat is one where you can destroy it. Playing with long periods of time with higher power without distortion can also break your voice coil. Every time you smell your subwoofer, it is the smell of the resin inside here, and that is telling you that the it's heated too much, so it can actually break sometimes. So if your subwoofer smells, you're doing something wrong. Well, that is a long explanation, but hopefully you get something out of it, and if you have any questions you can leave a comment down below, so I will be trying to explain them and answer any of those. And make sure you follow NART Audio here in Facebook page, facebook.com nartaudio.lv, and I will be making the putting the link down in the description. He knows every single bit of things of these voice coils. I'm quite sure about that. So ask him. If you have like a really old subwoofer that has a really nasty looking voice coil, thank you for following in Twitch. We are actually making this in live. So if you have a really special kind of voice coil that you need, that you cannot find any spare parts anymore, he's the guy to ask for. And thank you for watching. Thank you for Paolo for being part of this video. Even if it was a small one, but it was a really good one. Thank you. And thank you for all the comments and everything in our live. And please join us in live. We are making most of the live in Finnish, but I will be answering every question in English if you ask them. Thanks for watching. Like, dislike, and leave a comment. See you on the next video. Bye bye.